to involving the community as much as possible during the master plan process. This is only the first of several opportunities you'll have to interact with the project. Tonight, we're going to start by presenting you with information about this project. We'll discuss what an airport master plan is, who plays a role in developing the plan, and the anticipated timeline. After the presentations, we will join you around the room in an open house format. There will be subject matter experts stationed around the room who are ready to answer all of your questions. You can also ask me, as well as the committee members or the project team. We really are very interested in your feedback during this whole process. We hope to begin a dialogue with you in person, but we also encourage you to write down your comments at the table in the back. If you go back there, we have paper and you can write them down, and all of the feedback will be collected either tonight or on the website or through our social media channels. We will collect it and record it as part of this community process. This is your airport, and we want to be sure you have a say in its future. I do have a few people with me here tonight to help answer your questions. We have Jared Esselman, Director of Aeronautics from the state of Utah. I'm going to ask them to stand up or wave so you can see. There's Jared. He's from the state of Utah. We also have from TO Engineering, Jeremy McAllister, Tracy Hodgkins, and Dave Mitchell. Thanks to TO Engineering, they're our consultant engineer that's going to be helping us create this plan. And from Heber City, we have Matt Brower, our city manager. We have Travis Biggs, our airport manager. And I think we have a few city council members here that, raise your hand. Oh, we have Rachel Hazer. I saw Ryan. What is he? Oh, there he is, in the back. And Mike Johnson. So anyway, I'm sure they're three of our newest council members, but they're also learning quickly about what's happening at our airport. We did have an FAA representative who was supposed to be here tonight, but he had a personal emergency, so he wasn't able to attend, but he will be here at our next meeting to answer any questions you have about the federal role in this process. So to get started, I'd like to have Dave come up and give us an overview of what an airport master plan is. Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm Dave Mitchell with TO Engineers, and I'm glad to be here tonight. My topic will, the main thing I'm going to talk about tonight is the FAA and their involvement in the project. I don't know why it's doing that. Is that better? Okay, I'll just try to talk about it enough so you can hear me in the back. So, as the mayor mentioned, John was scheduled to be here. He's doing some disaster cleanup in his house, it sounds like, so he couldn't make it. He had a bake in his house or something. We did talk to him this afternoon, and he sends his apologies that he couldn't be here. He really didn't want to be here. I'm not going to speak for the FAA. I wouldn't dare do that, but I will talk about them. I do that often. But I worked with the FAA for over 20 years, and all I do is airport-related work, so I'm familiar with the FAA process and how it works. But what we're going to do tonight is talk about the airport improvement program and the aviation system as a whole, and then talk about the FAA's role in that system, and then focus in on their role in your project, this master plan. So the airport system as a whole is what's known as the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, or NIPIAS is the way you say that acronym. I know it's a bit awkward, but that's how we say it. That's 3,300 airports around the country, and the goal is to create an integrated system, as the name implies. So the that means a system that's efficient. As you can see on the map up there, the airports are spread out around the country. They're more dense and higher populated areas, of course, but the goal is to have airports everywhere in the country so people can move around the country, and people can move stuff around the country, and also, of course, if ever needed, they would use by the military. So that's part of the efficiency. The other is standardization, so that when a pilot flies from one airport to the other, they know what to expect when they land. But the airports look the same, they're marked the same, they're lit the same, they're built to a certain safety standard wherever you go. And so, obviously, every airport is different in some ways, but the infrastructure needs to be marked in bit and paved in the same way so that it's reliable and standardized for use. There are two major types of airports in the system, commercial service, and then what the system calls non-primary airports. Everybody else, including the FAA, calls those GA or general aviation airports. So just quickly, commercial service airports, those are any airport that has scheduled passenger service. They're broken down into 5 categories based on the number of passengers that use that airport. From large hubs, there are 33 large hub airports in the country right now. Atlanta is the biggest, I think 40-some million enplanements, what we call enplanements, that's a person boarding an aircraft at that airport. So 40+ million passengers a year go through there. And then Salt Lake is the lower foot up there. There's the bottom end of those large hub airports at just under 9 million enplanements for the last year that I can find out. And then they go down from that to medium hub, small hub, non-hub, and non-primary. And what non-primary are really GA airports that have some passenger service, less than 10,000 enplanements a year. And then the non-hub, of course, is just up over that threshold. And the upper photo is of Vernal, who was a non-primary airport, non-primary commercial service airport, until just this past year when they crossed that 10,000 threshold, so now they're non-hub. So those are the big ones, well, actually some of them aren't that big. Those are the ones that are commercial service. And then the rest are non-primary or GA. And the only distinction between the two is commercial service airports have scheduled passenger service, GA does not. And GA airports come in all shapes and sizes, from the smallest just a couple based aircraft up to very large airports like Teterboro in New York, Newfoundland, or Centennial in the Denver area, both very busy, very large GA airports. So, and of course, your airport is a GA airport. Heber City's airport falls in that category. So that's where Heber City fits in the nationwide system, is as a general aviation airport serving the community and serving the system as a whole. The FAA, their mission, as quoted up there, is to build the safest, most efficient aerospace system in the world. That's their stated mission. They do this with a number of divisions. They're divided into a number of divisions, or they call them lines of business. The big ones are air traffic, that of course manages the traffic in the air. And then aviation safety, they inspect aircraft and accept aircraft before they come on the market. And then airports is the third largest division. There are a couple others, but I won't go into those tonight. The airports division is divided into regions, as you can see on the map. Utah is in the Northwest Mountain region, and then each region is further divided into what they call airports district offices. And Utah is in the Denver ADO, Airports District Office. So all the FAA staff that your airport deals with directly are down in Denver. And the airports division, their job is to manage the NIPIAS, and they do that primarily by managing the Airport Improvement Program, which is a grant program that funds airport planning, design, and construction, also can buy equipment for airports, like some renewable equipment, things like that, through that program. It's funded by aviation fuel taxes primarily, and user fees along those lines. So the system is like the Highway Trust Fund. The Airway Trust Fund is funded by users. And generally speaking, for an airport like Heber City, 90% of the projects are funded by the FAA. So these grants are available to what the FAA calls sponsors at NIPIAS airports. And a sponsor is any entity, but it's usually a public entity that owns and operates an airport. And that airport is in the NIPIAS. There's some rules about what airports are in the NIPIAS, and we'll go into that. But if the airport's in the NIPIAS, they can get a grant from the FAA, which it's a great grant program. 90% funding is a very good funding level from the federal government. And here in Utah, the state generally matches about 5% give or take on top of that. So for 5 cents on the dollar, you can get a grant to maintain your airport, which is great. But of course, it's a federal program, so there's some strings attached. And those strings come in 2 forms. Mainly, the first are rules. And the first rule book is the AIP handbook, which defines what's eligible for FAA funding. What can we spend FAA dollars on? You can't spend it on anything, but what is eligible. And It's about 300 pages long. If you want to read it, I can give you a link if you can't sleep tonight. The other main area is advisory circulars, and their name is a little misleading, in my opinion, because it says advisory. You think that means they're not required; they're just advice. And in general, that's true, except there are two areas where they are required. And one is if it's a commercial service airport, which doesn't apply to your airport. The other is if you're using AMP funds for the project. And so if you're using their money, you got to play by their rules. Makes sense, I guess. Most of the large projects that are done at Heber are done with AIP funds, therefore you have to follow the FAA's rules. And there is an advisory circular on master planning, of course, on just about everything. And so that it kind of lines out the process that we follow to prepare an airport master plan. And Jeremy's going to go into that in further detail like that. The other streams are what are called grant assurances. And there are 20 pages of these. And 39 total assurances that the sponsor has to sign and agree to in order to get federal money. Every time you take a federal grant, you sign the assurances. And so basically how I describe this is you get money to improve your airport, but in exchange you give up some of the control of your airport. What you're saying by accepting that money is that your airport's now part of the federal system, part of the national system of airports, which means that you can't discriminate when you uses it. You can't just close it whenever you feel like it. Many of my clients want to close their airports at night, but they can't because assurances say they have to be open 24/7, with a few exceptions, of course. But so in exchange for taking that money, you're giving up some of the control over your airport. Now, your airport has been taking grants from the FAA from the 80s and since the 80s, and so you have these assurances in place. These streams are in place at your airport. So your community has agreed to maintain the airport as a public use facility, and so you have to continue to do that. One of the grant assurances has to do with planning, and that's Grant Assurance 29, which talks about airport layout plans, or ALPs, and it says that the ALP must be current and up to date. And so an ALP is just a plan of the airport that shows a whole bunch of things. I didn't include the whole assurance up here. But you may be asking if I got to the master plan. Well, the master plan, one of the main work products of the master plan is an airport layout plan. So at the end of the master plan update, you'll have an ALP. The FAA recommends that master plans be updated every 10 years or so. And they say, or when an operational change has taken place at the airport, a significant operational change. And in your case, in the last decade or so, there have been some operational changes, different types of aircraft using the airfield, therefore a master plan update is warranted and necessary. And so the FAA has funded this effort to move forward with that. So what's their role in your master plan? First thing is they're paying for a large portion of it. They're paying for about 90% of it. Paying for 90% of it. So they're providing the funds for it. They also provide the guidance in the form of advisory circulars and some other guidance that they give us along the way. And then the third thing is they do approve one element and accept another. They approve the forecast, as Jeremy will describe soon. Part of the process is to develop a forecast of future traffic at the airport. Because that's a big step in the process and it has implications down the line, they approve that at that time. And then at the end of the process, they accept the ALP. And of course, they review things as we go, provide comments. But the important thing that John wanted us to tell you today is that this is your master plan. It's not the FAA's master plan. It's something you need to do as part of the grant assurances, but they're not making the airport do it. They're not going to dictate the outcome of the master plan. It's your master plan. Of course, it's their money, you need to do it by their process and all that, but it is your master plan. So that's really all I wanted to cover, but just in summary, I just wanted to reiterate that the airport is part of the national airport system. And the AIP program exists to support airports just like yours that are in that system. That support does come with some strings, and the FAA is involved in the process with implementing it and will approve it, those two elements. And the main takeaway is that we have to look at everything from FAA standards and develop a plan that will help the airport meet FAA standards now and in the future. But this is your master plan, this is your community's master plan. So I encourage you to be involved in the process. I'm excited to see all of you here tonight, and just be involved in the process and go through it. And other than that, if you have any questions about what I said tonight, I'll be right over there afterwards. I'd be glad to talk to you afterwards.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. Wrong way. There we go. Okay. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the role of the airport in our community and what the city's commitments are during this master plan process. And thank you again for being here. We have named this project Flight Path, and the goal, again, is to work with the community, with the FAA, and the users of the airport to create the best possible business plan that we can to make sure that our airport remains an important asset to our region. So airports and our airport the airports have become more essential to our way of life. This is an image from the Dollar Wind fire that burned almost 60,000 acres this summer until air support based out of our airport was able to contain it. There's other ways that the airport helps our community. Supports, again, fire and emergency safety services. We have a lot of household jobs. Important economic drivers in our community, like tourism and business travel. Also, it supports recreational aviation, including gliders, hot air balloon enthusiasts, and some small general aviation. Another interesting thing is it preserves a large tract of open space into the future. It's hard to imagine what might be there instead, so think about it that way as well. Why do we need an update? Well, let's talk about the past. So a lot of things have changed since our last airport master plan update. Obviously our community is growing, jets are becoming more efficient, we're increasingly dependent on shipping things around the world, and so we want to look toward the future and design a plan so the airport will play the role we need it to and reflect our community as it brings in more families, more jobs, and more people who might need emergency support. Currently, we have to make sure our airport's meeting safety standards for the traffic that's already coming here. This doesn't mean we're trying to get more planes or trying to encourage larger planes, but it does mean that we have to allow those, based on the streams that Dave just talked about, who are already coming here to land here safely. And in the future, it's time to determine what the next 20 years of our airport's future will look like. We need to look at our options and what the costs are involved with each of those options. And again, nothing has been decided yet. We have some parameters, we have some strings, we have some commitments made in the past, but there have been no decisions about what the future of this airport will hold. Now let's talk about how this process will be funded. The key thing is something that Dave mentioned, and that's the AIP, the Airport Improvement Fund. That will pay 90% from the federal and 5% from the state of this process and most of the things we do at the airport. A certain percentage of every commercial flight sold goes into an airport fund. And the idea is that people using the service will pay for the service. So landing fees, cargo fees, fuel for firefighting aircraft, every airport in our region, in the state, and in the country, those fees help the airports continue to perform safety upgrades, construction projects, and other development that is solely for airport improvements. And that's why it's called Airport Improvement Fund. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit about transparency. So we all know that this master plan update is needed, and that we really truly are committed to an open and transparent process. This is the community's airport, and we want the community to be involved in this. We have a website, HeberValleyFlightPath.com, and that will be the clearinghouse for this process. You'll find past documents, updates on our progress, and even draft chapters of this airport master plan update. that the city council will vote on. So currently, you can go on that website and find chapter 1 of this plan. And we will also share the updates on Facebook and Instagram so you'll know to go and look at. We have some committees. The one committee is the Community Advisory Committee, and their job is to provide insight and guidance regarding the community's reactions, political issues, sensitivity, criticism, and desire for airport development as it relates to the greater community. The members are community organization representatives, airport users, and local business leaders. If anyone who's here from the CAC, will you please stand and be recognized? Anyone who's on the Community Advisory Committee, please stand. Thank you. This is a labor of love. They're not getting paid, and they're having to look at a lot of information and spend a lot of time. We also have a TAC, which is a Technical Advisory Committee. And these people their job is to provide input and insight on technical airport issues. These members have a high level of competency in aviation or airport operations, and they're major stakeholders in the airport's operations. TAC members, if you're in the audience, will you please stand up? This is our Technical Advisory Committee. All right, so let's talk a little bit about who plays a role here. So we have many stakeholders, like we've mentioned several times. The Heber City Council, whoops, I'm sure that was broken down. Heber City Council. So the Heber City is the official airport sponsor. The 5 members of the Heber City Council are the ones that have to make the final decision when all this information comes to them. It's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of information, but that's why we need to get all the input we can so they get as educated as possible about the realities and the input of the community. The FAA, as Dave talked about, the FAA has to sign off on the flight path airport forecast and make sure that we're meeting the regulations and the requirements that we've committed to through the Federal Aviation Administration. Project managers will have engineers and writers and environmental specialists. All of these people have to make sure it's accurate and as thorough and comprehensive and beneficial to our community as possible. And again, you as community members, whether you're represented by the committees, whether you're giving input to them or to the council members directly, it's really important that we get the community's feedback because once this plan is in place, it's going to be here for a while. So, anyway, thank you. And we will, agenda. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have Jeremy McAllister of TL Engineers. He's the project manager for Flight Path, and he's going to explain to us what the airport master plan process will look like in Heber.
Am I preloaded here, Katie?
Yes.
Okay. That's my PowerPoint. Appreciate you guys sticking with us. This will be the last part of the presentation portion of our meeting. Appreciate the introduction. I'm Jeremy McAllister with TL Engineers, and I just want to talk a little bit more in depth about the master plan process, what those goals and objectives will be, and kind of that timeline. So I'd like to take a few minutes to touch on the purpose of master plan studies, as well as the goals and objectives that we expect to see come out of this airport master plan. We've taken some language from the advisory circular for master plans and put it on this first slide that defines in part the functions of a master plan study. The FAA encourages every airport in that national airport system, of which Heber is a part of, to perform these master plan studies about every 7 to 10 years. Master plans typically look at 3 different time periods. Those periods of time are defined as terms. You have a short term, which is a 1 to 5 year outlook, a mid-term, which we look at the 6 to 10 year outlook, and then the long term, which is your 11 to 20 year outlook for this, will be looked at as part of this master plan. So it's set up that every 10 years or so, the airport should have a plan in place that is current on present day conditions and is planning for the next 20 years. The last master plan performed for the Heber Airport was in 2003. I don't want to read off the presentation to you tonight, but I do want to list the 9 objectives of an airport master plan. These objectives are essentially in sequential order and build on one another. It is important to note that we are at the very beginning of the master plan process, and we are in an information gathering phase of the airport master plan. As planners and as scientists, our job is going to be to provide to the city leaders good data so they can make the best decisions for this airport and this community. Because we haven't gathered all of that necessary data yet, no decisions have been made. So in just a few minutes, I'll go over a preliminary schedule with major milestones for the Heber Valley Airport Master Plan itself. Within the master plan, we will also talk about establishing a realistic schedule. We'll establish those schedules for any proposed development that result from the master plan study. Master plan studies include recommendations on future development needs of the airport, and part of our job as planners is to provide the city with a reasonable schedule and a financial plan that the city can accommodate in order to accomplish those proposed developments. Those developments and maintenance of the existing facilities are usually spread out and phased over the course of many years to allow the city to budget and plan for. Additionally, we take a broad look at the environmental aspects of any proposed development. More in-depth environmental work is done ahead of the actual projects themselves, but we must look at major environmental considerations at this stage to eliminate those alternatives that aren't feasible due to anticipated environmental issues that we would expect to encounter. You'll see up there objective number 7. Part of the art of a good master plan effort is to meet that objective 7 as listed above. Adequately addressing local, state, and federal regulations is a process that can take time. So I will stress that while the timeline we will discuss in a few minutes is our best guess, we need to be flexible, and we need to allow for the process to play out, and that no two master plans are the same. The plan itself will also need to be flexible. As objective number 9 states, the process should allow for a plan that permits changes into the future as required. All right, so how many steps are there, and where are we in those steps? And I apologize in advance for the text-heavy slide here. Please know that we will make this information available for viewing or download later through the website. We'll also take the last half of our meeting tonight to field questions as previously mentioned. Not all of these steps are in order, and by that I mean, for example, the public involvement step, which I think we show as number 2. The public involvement step in a master plan is going to continue throughout the entire life of the master plan. The environmental considerations listed as step 3 will also occur at various stages of the master plan project. Steps 4 through 10 are progressive and build on one another. And while this is our first public meeting, we are already in the data gathering process to determine existing conditions for our airport and the demand that is driving the use of our airport.